Alright, and we are back. So from the last video I had a couple of issues that had come up. I had to switch my workstation because I ended up coming up with an error. My main workstation was acting a little bit strangely. And from when I got back onto my desktop, when I got it all fixed, everything's working fine again. So I'm going to bring back my character recreator. And it's going to remember where we left off on our file that we have saved out for this character we've been skinning. So at this point I've already got my character completely skinned and pretty much ready to go to be to have all the controls built for the art kit. Now I did notice though that when I was skinning this character out that I had to add some more bones a couple places, and I had to also fix some of the bone structure as I went along. Like for instance, I had to add these eyeball bones. These are just leaf joints in here that are just to hold the integrity of the shape of the mesh for that's inside the head. Because whenever I was rotating the head, her eyes were just folding in differently. I don't know what was going on. So for these leaf joints, I only made them as placeholders for now. You notice earlier I have no control on this point here for the jaw because that bone is no longer driving that jaw. It's actually this bone here. It's just an end joint that I do not have any influence on. So I mean her jaw will kind of move up and down, but there's still more work that can always be done later. For now, also I wanted to mention I added a couple of more joint chains onto the skirt area, so that skirt has a little more flexibility for when it needs to move. And also what I had mentioned earlier about the joints I needed to add. As I was coming down here, I was scanning the boots. I realized there are no toe joints down here at the bottom, or any toe bones. So like her foot is only going to have a very limited amount of range. And what you need to do is we need to add some bones in here. So because the art kit's a very non-destructive type of workflow for when you're putting your character together, we can just come up back to the art kit. And from here we can go back to skeleton placement. Push yes because we know we're going to do some changes. We're not going to do anything drastic. We're going to add some bones. And let's go back to skeleton creation all the way back to the beginning because we need to add those toe bones in there. Let's go ahead and add in our toe bones. So we'll come down to the left leg, come down to left foot. And we add our toe bones. We have a joint 1 that we needed. And remember, because I deleted it earlier just to show here how to get these joints back in. So you would change that to 1, and then check on the right leg, and we want this to stay as the left leg. Be the same as the left leg. And if you want to add more joints as well while you're in this menu, you can, or whatever you need for your character. So like for here, we went from 4 skirt joints, 4 skirt joint chains, to now we have about 6. So I have about 2 for the sides on each side, 1 in the front, and then 1 in the back. So we have about the complete coverage here. And we need to make sure that, well, those bones for the toe will be added automatically to the toe joint, or for the foot joint. These ones here, every time you add these in, you gotta make sure that you set them up to the right parent. So okay, we're good here for adding our joints. So I'm gonna go back to skeleton placement, and I want to build from that template what we just said. We want to put in some more joints. It's gonna give us our proxy geometry and rescale that geometry. Let's go ahead and select that proxy geometry so we can zoom in here. Come on, there we go. Zoom on in with the F key to frame it. And let's go ahead and turn on our transparency and get rid of that proxy geometry with the disabled proxy geometry. When we zoom in here, we can see where the structure of this foot is going to end up being. This here is going to be our main driver. This is the new joint that we added on that last screen to drive the front of this toe. And because we had mirror on, it's going to come over to the other side of the foot as well. So you would go ahead and place this where you need it to be, where you need it to line up to the toe. It's good right now for where it is. Same thing, I wanted to make a mention about these skirt joints, or for these joint chains that were set up for the skirt. Earlier in the videos, I had set these up where I just wanted to run along the chain of this skirt. But when I was doing the ROMs for this skirt, when I was skinning it out, it was all these joints in this chains were running, just rotating in very odd directions. And lo and behold, I had to come back in the skeleton placements menu. I had to make sure I rotated to where these X arrows were pointing outwards. So whenever you're doing your ROMs, now like this skirt now can fan out like you would see in a picture of Marilyn Monroe, the one that got her all famous. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. So once you have your skeleton placements needed to be for all your new joints, we'll go ahead and confirm that. We do deformation setup. Want to go ahead and create our rig pose, and I just want to say yeah, go ahead and put it in the T pose for me. And I'm going to go ahead and do auto world just like that, so it realigns everything where it needs to go, and then go ahead and save that rig pose. I do not want to do anything with the proxy geometry, so I'm going to disable that. Say no. It's going to go ahead and go back to our skinning phase. It knows that we had weight data from our last time we were building this geometry and skinning it to the bones, so it's going to import the last save that it did when you went back on this menu. So I'm going to pause the video for a minute while the skin weight gets re-implemented on the geometry, and we'll be right back. Okay, and the skin weight data just got imported right back in, and check a couple of these bones to see everything's just fine. Let's rotate, well, we turn off transparency so you can see what's going on. And check the leg out. Yeah, I kept the legs separate from the skirt because when this animates, we can make these joints dynamic, so they can move with the leg, or we can actually control them by hand animations for when we do certain moves for her in the game. Check out that leg, lower leg one more time. It's deforming just fine. Looks like all the weights came in good. Real quick, let's go ahead and with our new joints, we have no influence. We want to add influence to these joints. So how we do that is we go ahead and select our geometry, and down here, let's go ahead and go to our paint weight tool, bring up all of our joints that have influence over our geometry. And here you'll see two buttons that have now become available for use. We have a remove option, which will take any of these joints that have influence here in this list, and it will get rid of it, and it will get rid of those joints so they do not have influence anymore on the geometry, which we're not doing here. We need to add these toe bones into this list, so let's go ahead and add influence. Find those joints, so we have our ball left and ball right for our foot and for our toes, and go ahead and add those, and they are now in this list. You'll just have to come down and find them. They're pretty easy to spot because they're going to be locked, so you can't accidentally add influence, and they're at very bottom of our list. So let's go ahead and unlock these by selecting this lock joint here. Have to push it twice to completely unlock it. And for these joints, since they're only two joints, I'm not going to worry about mirroring over the skin weight. I mean, there's not too much data that we got to worry about painting right now. So I'm just going to do some real quick broad brush strokes at 0.75 for influence, and I'm going to select that joint. And let's go ahead and get some influence going in this foot. I'm going to explain why in a second, why I'm not going to go ahead and mirror the influence over for this character. Almost done here. Let's go ahead and drop and smooth. Drop and smooth, and grapple and tackle, if any of you guys know that joke. Alright, let's go to our ball joint on the right foot. Let's go ahead and do the same. Grapple and tackle. Drop and smooth, drop and smooth. Okay, let's go ahead and smooth that out again. Almost done with the foot. Test this out in just a second here. That foot's looking pretty good. One more time on the side just to be sure. Alright. Let's go ahead. I pushed the move tool. I pushed W so I didn't have to see the weighting information anymore. I'm going to go ahead and select these joints individually and test them out. I could always do RMs, but I'm not going to need to do that for this case. I'm just wanting to make sure that they influence the foot and move it. That toe is looking pretty good. Alright. Looks like our toes are now put in there. So now we can add some toe bend for her boots instead of her having one solid foot when she's moving around and walking. Now the reason I wanted to explain why I wasn't going to mirror the weights over when I was doing these toe joints was because one, they are just one joint and it's a very small area I have to paint over. If it was something like, let's say the chest area or the arms, that's something we want to take care of first. But the reason I didn't want to mirror it over in a case like that is because the way this skirt was set up had very specific and unique skinning areas for both the belt and the skirt itself. And let me select these joints here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's kind of hard to see, so let me go to transparency mode. Select all of these joints that are the top of the chains. This should be the last one. Alright, let me go ahead and frame that up so I can see what's going on here. One more. Missed it. That one. Alright, and okay, for these joint chains that influence the skirt, and turn transparency back off. For instance, when I did this belt, like, it was influenced by the secondary joint of two of these chains. This one down here by the secondary joints all the way to the lower area. And this upper area was influenced by the upper top joint of the joint chains for the skirt. Now, if I had done mirrored over, it would have destroyed any of that custom information I had painted on there. And I didn't want to do that. And the other reason too, when you in that skeleton placement menu where you rotate your joints, the reason I had to have them all out is for when I go to rotate this character's dress out, just to make sure that all the weights are going to influence it correctly. Now, if I did not have these joints rotated the correct way as I did in the last screen, and I ended up pulling out or fanning out the dress or anything like that, these joints would have been in all different directions, just going whatever way that they were initially placed at. So that's another thing that you want to be aware of when even doing arms or eyes or anything like that, or even toe joints for that instance. If your joint's facing the wrong way in the wrong axis and you go to turn it, yeah, you can turn it for that one, but if you select multiple joints going up a chain, such as areas like the finger that we were doing, it's not going to look right. So here I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and save out the scene so we have it ready for our next phase of putting the control rig on. Go ahead and save that out. And let's go ahead and make our control rig. And I have a feeling that I'm gonna, because this scene has crashed on me before, that I don't know if it's gonna go through all the way, but let's go ahead and give it a try. Go ahead and build. From this screen you can go ahead and select your project folder you want to do. Because she's in our game, which is called Proxy, we have a Proxy character rigs file that I have set up where Trent, that you saw earlier, was the big guy in the screen that we used him for scaling. He's in here. This is a very early rig, but Alicia, I made her name on here earlier, and because that was a test rig for another reason I'm going to be showing you here in a minute for what comes up. And you can come down here and make your character's name unique to wherever you want to save them out. If you don't want them part of an original existing file, just click on this file here with the plus button to make a brand new project file. Let's go ahead, and for advanced, if you have any pre-built scripts, which I'm not using, you can go ahead and add them in here at this time. Expand this window out and let's go ahead and build. Now let's go ahead and overwrite what we have for now. You can make a thumbnail. You're going to notice if I go to make a thumbnail for her, it's not going to read exactly what you're seeing in the viewport here. It's going to end up, yeah, really crazy. Something off The Exorcist or something off the movie Hellboy. So we'll just take a picture of that just so we're overriding it. And we are getting this error here. Because this file had crashed earlier and I had moved from station to station, if you're doing this and your ArtKit crashes on you, it at times will try to preserve all your work, but it will possibly insert unknown nodes that Maya doesn't know what to do with. And if I push OK to acknowledge it, I'm not going to be able to publish this character because of those nodes. As well as sometimes you may end up with an error that comes down here. It says it can't find the skeleton script. So I'm going to pause the video, and in the next video we're going to go ahead and solve this error that I found a workaround for. I read up on the Unreal Answer Hub forums of how to get past an issue that comes up like that. So in the next video we'll go ahead and get this character fixed, and we'll hopefully be able to get the control rig built for this character.